Hello. Hey, everyone. Um, Let me know if the mic is working. Um, just mic check. I am very tired at the moment. I just had dinner and I have to hop in like 20 minutes, maybe 30. But today I want to talk about, and I actually blogged about this today. Um, but I want to talk about resumes. Do they matter? Do they matter, especially on a hiring perspective? Having been on the getting hired and hiring ends of things, I think I have a relatively good understanding of whether or not resumes are relevant or not. But today I just want to talk about resumes. And if you have any strong feelings regarding resumes, please let me know. But today I want to talk about resumes beyond an investment banking perspective, just resumes as a whole. I think there is a lot to be said about resumes. I think people spend tons of time on resumes. And I think a lot of people will get the feeling that they didn't make it to the next level of a job because of a resume, which I think is very concerning because then you really ultimately fault yourself, which I think has good basis. Obviously, you want to have the best GPA possible, go to a good school, have relevant experience. But I also think that just because you don't get picked based on a resume doesn't mean you're not the best person for the job. A lot of times people pick off resumes because they need validification on both ends. When you're hiring, you want to be the person or the team hiring the good team. You want to be the company that is hiring highly qualified people. And the only way to vouch on behalf of those people ultimately is the resume. And I think that's just the reality slash concern that we're in the world that we live in, just because there is no better way to do it. And I wonder, this is more serving as a forum of me trying to understand, is there a better way? Validification award now? Yeah, it's starting now. I think we need to think about what is the best way to hire the best candidates beyond a resume screen. But I say that because I think a lot of good candidates are missed out on. Or passed on because of our misunderstanding of needs and wants between those that are trying to get hired and those that are not. Um, Obviously, I don't have the solution for it, and I was hoping people would have thoughts in the chat about it. But I know it's a hot take when I say resumes don't matter. I don't necessarily mean that we don't need resumes. I'm not saying that there is a alternative at the moment. How else would we validify someone's um, credentials? How else would we say that someone is worthy of having a job? But I do think that there is a lot of emphasis put on a resume or a cover letter, and it doesn't necessarily equate to someone's qualifications or the ability for them to take on the job. If anything, my assumption is that a lot of times we pass on candidates and we select others solely based on their resumes at that initial screen just because we have no alternative. And someone who is not technically the best person for the job ends up getting picked because most of the things that we do on a job is not even pertain to a resume or previous experience, but it's largely about whether or not we're capable or competent to take on the role. Um, Xander says, I think companies are trying to supplement the process with more and more extras, endless psych tests, higher review, etc. No, I completely agree, Xander. And I think a lot of that stems from what I said in the beginning of they need to qualify for themselves. They need to somehow excuse it to themselves a reason why they're hiring that specific candidate. And the more filters they provide, like higher review tests and psychology tests and all these tests where they're saying this now proves that the candidate that we're hiring is worthy. This proves that this candidate is good enough to be hired by us. It's this weird psychological effect of you are the ones administering the tests. You're the ones determining whether the tests are a valid measure of you being a good enough candidate. But you are setting the standard. Therefore, you're saying that the standard that you set is a valid measurement of someone's ability to succeed at the company. I wonder if we took a long run statistical test over time and think about the number of the candidates that weren't hired ultimately and see their career trajectory. And I also am very curious about how many return candidacies or candidacies that depend on who the hiring manager is, the timing of that time. I wonder how much of that actually affects the hiring process as opposed to the actual objective credentials on a piece of paper. I think that's a fascinating thing to think about. I wonder how much of it is literally the time of day when the resume is reviewed, at what point of the hiring cycle the resume comes in, as opposed to the objective qualities of the resume itself. And that's kind of a scary thought, because you can build up all you want of your specs and of your future, the things that you can do. And unless you are in a very, very hard skill role, like being a plumber or even software engineering, aside from that, I think you can easily just get passed because the system or the person that happens to review it isn't feeling it, or they don't like the way that your resume is structured. Once again, I don't have a solution for what I'm saying at the moment. I would love to come up with a solution, but I'm just made to believe that the system we have right now doesn't benefit any party. It doesn't benefit those that are wanting to be hired and those that are trying to hire. And there's a strong disconnect because the intermediary system of using resumes as an initial screen is fundamentally flawed. And I know for a fact because I have reviewed countless resumes, both for those that have gotten roles and I don't understand how they got it based on the resume, and those that have been rejected hundreds of times based on the resume, even though they're just as qualified, if not qualified, more qualified than those that get it. And you can make an argument that there is a networking component, just timing, sure, but I think that just brings out concern over then what are we aiming for? How do we incentivize a somewhat meritocracy in this world? Maybe networking with higher managers is the only way to escape the biases you just mentioned. I agree, and I'm always a big proponent of networking. I think it really does get you the foot in the door, especially if resume is not your forte, or you just have not been doing well over resumes, and you understand that having the ability to network will bring you a bigger chance of surviving the process. But then you can make the argument, I think, both ways, in the sense that then you shouldn't say that resume is the first screen. You should say networking is a component. And then one could argue raising your hand and saying that you're more interested is part of the skill set. I'm a big believer in that. I think raising your hand is important. And I also think that networking is part of the hiring skill set process. Xander, I love the participation. The difference in the networking culture is crazy. I'm based in Sydney, Australia, and there is nowhere near as much of an emphasis as on it as there seems to be in the US. Yeah, I think networking is definitely a US based thing. I would argue many companies or many countries probably are uncomfortable with the idea of networking because it provides a almost a cop out of it not being a meritocracy, and it's more about connections. While I think the barrier to entry and initial networking may be hard, I am of the belief that the actual networking process is a meritocracy, and there are people that are clearly ready, that are more eloquent through effort that can be achieved in. Obviously, it's also industry specific, correct? So investment banking, for example, is very heavily networking based. I simply think because there's no really hardcore way to prove yourself. They're not going to make you model in front of you, or they're not going to make you align logos really fast. It's more about your ability to have grit and have interest in the industry, and networking itself is showing the people that are hiring that what you're doing is supposed to be proving the idea that you're interested in the field and you're going that extra mile. But I do understand the whole emphasis and the reality that perhaps not everyone is accessible to networking, and not every role needs to be network based. A lot of positions you don't need to be passionate about the industry, the job. You don't need to know how to be client facing or people facing. A lot of jobs nowadays is almost like independent contracting, where you're sitting behind a computer and resolving problems. I will say, I will strongly stand by the statement that at the end of the day, most jobs in the world, people are people jobs, and it's important to be able to interact with human beings, and that's only vouched for, if not standardized and proven by the networking process. But I would argue the networking serves more as a first round interview as opposed to you proving that you are a people's person. For those who are joining now, I am discussing the merits of resumes, but as always, I'm happy to answer any questions as it pertains to careers and life and investment banking as a whole. Have you seen Hidena Rutogda asks, have you seen good analysts with bad resumes, or is it just expected to have a good one? If I'm being honest, I've seen plenty of people that get hired, not just with investment banking, but in general, that have very questionable resumes. And I think a large part of that is they either get pushed through networking or maybe I'm just skeptical. I will say I've seen the opposite end more frequently, right? I've seen people that have such phenomenal resumes, including the school they're from, the experiences they have, the skill sets they have, and they just simply don't get a second round, a first round interview, which I wish there was like big data, and I wish there was a active tracker because I know companies don't. I've been on the hiring end of things. I don't think companies actively track the concrete reason why someone was passed on. I'm also made to believe that a lot of it could be system errors or there being too many resumes and they have no time to parse through all of them. Um, that's a long way of saying I think yes, I've definitely seen analysts with bad resumes. I've seen people who fail to get analyst roles with great resumes. There seems to be no answer. Uh, the only thing I'm pointing to is it's troubling when we say that the resume screen is the first step in a process when clearly there's other things that are just as important, or if not bigger differentiating factors, because there are clearly cases of people that are with strong resumes that just don't get it to work. I think I'm definitely being critical, but it's just a concern of mine. And my bigger picture that I keep going back to is I wonder if there is a genuine inefficiency between those that are hiring and those that want to get hired, and whether or not we are missing out on the best candidates in every case. Jacqueline asks, no, happy to answer any questions. Harry, sorry for the question. I have a law degree. How can I get into investment banking? I'm not sure why you would want to jump into banking if you have a law degree. If you've invested that much money and time into law, banking and law compensation, especially in the beginning, is pretty damn similar to the associate level. If anything, I've heard that law makes more. The base is definitely higher. I've seen ex lawyers go into banking typically with an MBA, just because you have to prove yourself that you're business savvy and financy. But maybe think about doing a law job in a M&A sphere. I don't know if you are post 3L. I'm assuming that you have some kind of law position lined up, but I would highly advise against. I mean, banking is basically, I think, law. Sure, the upside potential of a bonus at the partner level might be a little different, but I've heard in the long run, I think law is, especially if you've invested 3 years into it and you have a degree, assuming from a decent school, like I think sticking through that might be great. Seems like having a kick-ass resume is not relevant as long as you have a referral backing you up. Yeah, I mean, I think there's obviously limitations to how much a referral slash connection can get there, right? Because I think there's enough people with a network, with people they know in the industry and a good resume. So there's no need for anyone to hire you if you have a crappy resume and you just have a person you know in the industry. But I do agree that the extent that a resume can take you is probably far lower than how much someone you know inside can take you. How's your startup going? Oh, it's going great. I think I am definitely meant for the startup world, and I've been enjoying my time. No, Kevin, guys, we don't have to talk about resumes. This is just top of mind today, and I blogged about it, so that's what I wanted to start with. But as always, I am happy to talk about anything I want. Or sorry, not anything I want, anything you guys want. Startup life is great. I have a video coming out this Saturday regarding why I think startup is actually the best exit opportunity post banking ever. Very hot take, but that's my current opinion. So stay tuned for that, guys. But that is how I am feeling. Have you worked with associates with a JD? Yeah, I have not personally. I've definitely seen people that are partners with JDs. I will say I'm not sure if they were people that were bankers, went to get a JD to heighten their partner experience, and then came back. I don't know any associates that began with the JD. Most people that I know with JDs are either lawyers or have started their own business, and then most associates that I know have an MBA background. The MBA background people have great career paths. Most partners, I think, have MBAs. MBA associates obviously have a slight setback as they start, kind of old, but that's beyond their concern. They're in it for the long run. Hey, do you think IB is a dying field? At least I think IB is at a interesting point where they really need to position themselves better to get the best of talent. I think they've been getting the best of talent without really thinking about it for a very long time, and now there's plenty of fields that make just as much money with better perks. So there's a lot of talent disruption. As a whole, is investment banking a dying industry? No. There's just too much money. And at the end of the day, they are the ones raising capital. They're the ones that are administering transactions. Obviously, with the introduction of cryptocurrency and DeFi and all this, and DAOs, I think there is a possibility where the middleman may be cut out. But obviously, the middlemen are also jumping into this crypto and blockchain phenomenon. So, long story short, in the short run and medium long term, no, I don't think IB is a dying field, and there's graduates out the door still wanting to jump into investment banking. I have no doubt about that. What made you decide to switch over to the startup industry as opposed to going to Hrfp? I think I I wasn't very finance driven. That's something that I recognized early on. I guess a blunt statement would be it's very hard to get into HMP. Harder than getting into startups, and I think I wasn't passionate enough about finance as a whole for me to, I guess, put in the extra mile, especially during my work-life balance with HFP. I don't know if that's like a beat around answer, but I never really found building financial models and thinking about long-term investing horizon lines interesting. The cow pie asks, "What's good?" I'm good. It's been a very work stressed week. I've actually been really busy recently, just with a whole variety of things, not just work. A lot on my mind. I've been just trying to figure out this back in Irvine, back in Orange County lifestyle. I have a lot of different events coming up. I just came back from a weekend in San Francisco. Awesome experience. Great 3 days. There was just a lot going on, Kabai. But I think I'm just drained. I probably just need some rest. But I'm about to go to like a 2-hour Bible study in like 40 minutes. Jacqueline asks, do you have any merch? Kind of. I'm working on something. I've always been working on something, but like I don't know if I'm at the level where I want to be at merch. I do have a mug here that my friend made for me. I wouldn't consider this merch. If you guys want this, like let me know. But I don't know why. Like I always tell people are like, oh, like I heard you're doing YouTube. I'm not known for being good looking or talented. I'm just known for providing information. I don't know why anyone would want my merch. I like designing clothes for fun, but we'll see. We'll see. Have you known of any IB analysts that were in their late 20s when they started? I do not. Most analysts, if not all analysts that I know, are straight out of undergrad. I know MBAs that are out of after 30, but I don't know any analysts because the analysts they wouldn't hire analysts in their late 20s. They would just firms would hire out of undergrad because there's plenty of talent coming straight out of undergrad. They're young and ready to work with more stamina. I wonder if there's an age limit to working in finance. Is 30 to 40 too old? No. I mean, there's partners that are over 60. There might be a statistical age limit of people getting hired. Like I'm sure that there is a ceiling of people getting introduced to finance for the first time is probably around the 30 age. But I don't think there is an age limit to working in finance. Definitely not. Do you know anything about NYU and how to get in? Yeah, so New York University, obviously a big name brand school. They're actually not like ranked insanely high, but they're definitely known for their Stern School of Business. They know they're good for arts. It's in the Big Apple, so it's very good. They're definitely good for banking. I know a lot of people from Stern. How to get in? Just typical process of Common App, I assume. Heard it's easier to get into banking now than ever, as a lot of folks are quitting. Do you see getting into IB more challenging in the future once this hiring streak claims down? I think there's that's a great question, actually. There's a number of dynamics, right? One, hiring obviously froze last year, so they underhired. Two, banking made an insane comeback, and there's immense deal flow, but not enough bankers to combat that. Three, there's a lot of turnover, including yours truly. And because of that, there is an empty, what would be the rising third-year analysts, huge turnover. Current rising second-year analysts started during COVID, so they're not as well trained. The camaraderie's down. Even they're jumping ship. And then the incoming first years, complete havoc. So I think there's a big pocket of opportunity. Yes, I agree that hiring is probably a bit easier than before. But I'm always of the assumption that normalization occurs at the end of the day. That's all to say. Yes, I think this is just a phase, and I'm sure we will go back to normal, and it'll become just as competitive again. Was geography an important factor in deciding where you wanted to work as a full-time IB analyst? It honestly wasn't, Aubrey. So I grew up in California, went to school on the East Coast. Never was a diehard New York fan, so I ended up in Chicago. But it wasn't like I need to be in Chicago. There were obviously reasons why I wanted to be in Chicago, and I had to say that for my interviews. But I wasn't like a die hard anywhere, so it never was a breaking point for me. Um, Hey Brian, what are some career alternatives to investment banking? You can work in consulting in the same rigor slash level of things. You can invest 3 years into law school and become a lawyer, or you can just go into like business, the opposite side of things, and work as a general business person. Hey Brian, do you know anyone at Santa Clara? SCU? Yeah, I do, Michael. I know someone that graduated recently. My friend Jack. I don't think he's doing bank. I think he's doing accounting. But Santa Clara is like a weird. I don't say it's a target school, but I think a couple banks do hire out of there, and they have a pretty decent finance program. Are you Christian evangelical? I'm Presbyterian. I'm sorry, I'm not good with like nomenclature. I'm Presbyterian. Do you mind sharing any testimonies or documenting your walk with Christ on your channel? Oh yeah, I will definitely do that. That's a great idea. I don't know. I guess I'm kind of ashamed to not have done that. Yeah, if you're interested, my blog, brianjoe.com, I talk about my faith a lot. I will definitely do a video on my faith. I don't know if I'm qualified enough to talk about my faith. I don't want to lead people the wrong way with my poor theological understanding, but yes, my favorite worship song lately is Only King Forever by Elevation Worship. New York better than Chicago. Go F yourself. Sorry, Carlos. I guess you're very passionate about New York. I think Chicago's better. Your path reminds me of Anubhav Jain. Leave banking and just unload all that capacity into creative passion pursuits. You should look at his channel and swipe some good stuff. Thanks, Matt. I typically don't really watch YouTube in general, and definitely don't watch finance channels, but yeah, I will check that out. I don't know. I'm trying to be creative. I just like what I do. Do you think a 35-year-old could become an investment banking analyst? I do not. Just statistically speaking, I doubt anyone who's 35 joined as a banking analyst. Do you know some IB who go into financial management after? Do you mean asset management? I don't know anyone personally, but I'm sure that's definitely possible. I don't know why they would. Is asset WM the same as IB? It's not. I would say it's easier to get into statistically. It's more of a salesy role, right? You're like understanding different assets and selling it to potential high net worth customers. I would say it's very different. It's both in finance, but I would say it's different. From what I understand, people recommend working as in an IB for a couple of years and then applying to private sector like hedge fund and managing your own money. Correct. So that's what most people do. They do investment banking for anywhere from 2 to 3 years. Some people nowadays doing 6 months to a year, and then they jump into something cooler like the buy side hedge fund, VCP, or join a startup or go into something completely different. It gives you flexibility to do a lot of things. Yes. How different are summer analyst interviews from full-time ones, thinking middle market or boutique? I've never been part of the full-time experience, Michael, because I did the summer analyst and then get a full-time offer there. My assumption is that the full-time obviously has a higher bar just because they expect more and they need you to talk about the summer prior. And also, depending on what criteria you fall in, why are you lateraling? Why didn't you get an offer back? Or why are you attempting banking even though you didn't attempt it last summer? All are different reasons to prepare differently for a full-time opportunity. I would always advise get a summer opportunity, kill it, and get the full-time. It's a better feeling. It's much more comforting. But yes, I think it's definitely different for summer versus what full-time, especially because you have to realize demand on the banks front. So when they're hiring summer, they're thinking about a class of 15 or 30 or 40 or whatever. When they're thinking about full-time hires, they have made all their full-time offers out. They've deciphered who's taking the offer, who's not, and they're probably hiring for 1 or 2 spots, right? So their needs are a lot more specific, and they're probably a way higher bar. And honestly, if they're not going to find the perfect candidate, they're not going to stop. Do DCM, ECM bankers truly have worse exit ops compared to M&A bankers? I think they're probably limited because M&A is definitely more PE focused and the sexier part of finance. But I've seen plenty of DCM, ECM people fall to great, cool things. Kevin Tran has a very hot take. People say they work hard, but they aren't getting anywhere financially. But in a capitalist society, you get compensated for the risk you take on. I don't think that's a hot take at all. I think we're, especially COVID has proven to us that effort doesn't always equal result. Smart effort equals great results, but any effort does not equal result. I think that's something important to think about. People, I think, often blame society for saying for their efforts not concluding to results, but reality is if all and any effort was all it took to have successful results, then everyone would be successful. It's smart effort. It's finding the market needs to adhere correctly for you to be successful. Kevin, I don't think that's a hot take. I think it's a great take. Our exit setup is very different for capital markets versus something like M&A or IB. By capital markets, do you mean like a capital markets coverage group or like sales and trading, Aaron? I think VCs are hiring more and more on a operating perspective, and obviously you need a finance background, but I think they like people with some form of a operational background, product management background, or investing background, or even like a startup experience, because VC investing is less about financial modeling and understanding, because you don't know where it's going to take. And sometimes, many times, the things you're investing in is part of a new industry in itself. It's more about like, do you understand the business model? What's the TAM? Things like that I think go a bit beyond just banking. Do you know anyone who transitioned from a well-known MMM to a BB? Yeah, I know a couple people that have gone from very well-known MMs or like a bank like a Wells Fargo to a very well-known bulge bracket. I think that's typically a lot of how lateraling works, either from a bulge bracket to another, or from a lower tier middle market bank to saying like I want something more hardcore. So yeah, I don't think that's a far stretch problem at all. I've seen it happen a lot. So I'm just searching something up earlier. But yeah, it's definitely possible. Is there any way to skip being an IB analyst or do something else to get into hedge funds or private equity? Yeah, I've seen people go directly into them. I think it definitely takes a specific type of person, just because it's really hard to prove yourself investing wise. And a lot of people that are at hedge funds or private equity come from a banking background. So they just want to see that out of tradition. But I think it's possible. I would not say like I would try to shy away from saying like it's impossible, but I think I would say that there are opportunities for people to jump right into those both, but it's very, very unlikely and it's hard. Thoughts on business frats in college? So Kaya, I was part of a social frat, and I don't think our school had any business frats. I do think that at schools where they are prominent, I don't know the names of, they're like Delta something Pi or something. It's a great way to network. It's a great way to just have something to talk about. I don't think it's ever gotten anyone a job solely from that, but I think having a network is always important. Having fun with them is also cool, obviously. I would highly recommend it if it's possible to get in. I have a couple of years of trading under my belt that I want to show to an IB when I'm applying. How should I go about that? Trading is very, I'm sorry to say, irrelevant to investment banking if you're going to like a traditional field like M&A. I think it's good to say that you have finance experience and you have relevant experience, but I would recommend a MBA if you're going to try to go directly into IB from trading. Wall Street Skate Bro. Hey, Brian, I really enjoyed your videos. Keep up the good work. Enjoy the rest of your week. Oh, I appreciate that a lot. I'm trying to have it's a stressful, long week. Worst case scenario, if things don't work out at a startup, do you see yourself going into banking? Yeah, I've thought about that. I think worst case scenario, sure, I might join a smaller shop or reach out, but I would have ideally not like to, and I think tech has fit me well. How do you like Virginia coming from Cali? I love Virginia, especially rural Virginia. I mean, it took a while for it to grow on me, but I definitely loved it. I'm from VA, go to school at SCU. I'm curious to hear your perspective. So I mean, I didn't go to, so my school was in like rural Virginia. It's not probably the Virginia you imagine. I like DC, I like Fairfax, but the Virginia that I was part of is not the Virginia that you were thinking about. If you could go back to give your 18-year-old self some advice, what would you say? I'd say enjoy life more. I would say use your weekends more wisely. I would say hang out with your friends a lot more. I would say explore the different career options available a lot more. And I would say pick up a hobby earlier on and do YouTube earlier on. Do you have any videos or any advice on how to network with bankers that you do not know personally yet? Yeah, Daniel, I have a video on networking. It's called like art of networking. It was like a year ago. If you stay in investment banking for 60 years, is there, at least I think you didn't finish your sentence, is getting a master's in finance offer, you know what, I'm going to say it once and for all. I think master's in finance is not worth it, especially if you're considering investment banking. I have one friend who did a master in finance, and like it was very hard for him to get things done. So I would not. What would you say is the importance of master's MBA for finance? I think MBA is a reset button that allows you to open doors that you previously don't have access to. That's its relevance. That's pretty much about it. Guys, wow, already been 30 minutes. I didn't really get to talk about what I want to talk about, but always happy to answer any questions. I'm going to cut it short today just because I have that Bible study I have to go to in like 20 minutes. But thank you guys for watching. I do these every Wednesday. Next week, I don't know what I'm going to talk about next week. I'll think about it. But check out brianjen.com for my blog if you're interested. This Saturday is a new video. I'm going to be talking about why startups is the best exit opportunities post-banking. I do one-on-one conversations if you'd like, using the link below. I also recently joined a platform called PathMatch as a career coach. If you guys want to go check them out, there's actually a podcast coming out soon that I did with them sometime next week. But as always, I thank you guys for joining. I am here every Wednesday to answer any questions, and I really appreciate everyone's support. Hunter, sorry for you just getting here. Lance, I will make a video on why Masters is not worth it, and I will make a video on my faith/Bible study soon. Thanks, guys, for joining. I'll see you guys next time.